Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 90.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to bringing you useful information on custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques, bringing you the custom club fitting experience of your life and lower scores, always. I had an interesting thought yesterday after I played golf that I wanted to share with you because it was a thought I'd never had before. And it was this: what would it feel like to be a truly great putter? I mean, someone who felt like every time they stepped over a putt that they could make it, or that they had a great chance to make it. I hope I had this thought because I'm seeing some really neat improvements in consistency in my own personal putting stroke as a result of some learning I'm doing, both from the David Orr Flat Stick Academy and also from some collaboration and conversations with Bruce Rarick. So we'll see, but wouldn't it be fun to be in that frame all of the time? It was kind of a fun thought to have. Well, today, I know you're going to enjoy listening to a longtime club fitting friend, Jim McCleery, with McGolf Custom Clubs in Waverly, Ohio. Jim is a 4-time Golf Digest Top 100 custom club fitter. So enjoy this interview with Jim McCleery. Hello, this is Tony Wright with the Golf Improvement Podcast. And I'm tickled today to talk to a good friend, Jim McCleery from McGolf Custom Clubs in Waverly, Ohio. Now, I guess I could talk with Robin too, right? But she's probably not on the podcast. But she's a big part of what you do too, your wife. Since 2011, Jim's been a Golf Digest Top 100 custom club fitter, which is a pretty big accomplishment, to say the least. He's achieved many other honors and certifications. And one of the biggest was, I believe it's the ICG International Club Maker of the Year. And as I said in the beginning, I've known Jim, I think, for about 10 years. I guess I first met you at the PTCS show back in 2006 or 2007, the first one I went to. So Jim, it's great that we get to do this today. Welcome.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me on. Yeah,
and you're doing a lot of neat things, and we'll get into it too. You've got a great YouTube channel. I mean, you've sort of kind of embraced that in terms of a way to tell people about things that you do. So, but first of all, let's talk about sort of the roots, and I always like to get people to do this. So what initially got you into custom club fitting, and what would you say, any particulars that propelled you into being recognized as one of the Golf Digest Top 100 club fitters?
Well, I get asked that quite a bit during the fittings. It's like, wow, how do you know all this stuff, and where do you go with it? Well, the reality of it was my kids. Both my kids were still playing baseball and football and basketball, that kind of thing. And I started getting into golf, and the kids wanted to get into golf. And I said, okay, well, we'll try it out. And of course, like every other parent, went out and bought a couple kids sets. And like every other parent, about 6 months, they hit a growth spurt, and they're both now 6 inches taller, and all of a sudden the clubs don't work. And I said, well, geez, if this is going to keep happening, this is going to take quite a bite out of Dad's wallet. And there's got to be
everything does anyhow, but yeah.
Well, yeah, especially when they're doing all three sports, and they all of a sudden come up with a fourth. Yeah. And I said, well, there's got to be a way. Well, guy passing by says, hey, you can build those things. Well, I was into woodworking at the time. I said, no way, you can do that. And they said, yeah. So I went up to what was a golfsmith just to get a basic idea. It was a one-day class. And, of course, I'm more of a hands-on guy. And they said, well, here's the stuff. I said, well, I'm running up to the machines to try and work them, and they're slapping me away because, insurance. And but we got it made, and I said, well, this is okay. And I said, there's got to be more to it than just cut, stick, glue, done. And they mentioned that there was Golf Works, which is only about an hour and 40 minutes away from here.
Yeah.
So actually, there was another fella in the Professional Clubmakers Society here in Ohio, and I talked to him at length, and he recommended them. And I went up there for a week, and that was fairly intense. It was that 5-day fitting and club repair.
Yeah, the Jim Yakinich, or I assume he was probably doing it then still. Yeah.
He, this is how it dates it. He was just getting started.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah. And I went up there, drove up there every day, and I took every club I ever had, and I went up there, and every day I took them apart and put them back together. And that's pretty much how it got started, and that's how I learned about the Professional Clubmakers Society. And then, that went through its thing, and then that's how I learned. We know how we got the ICG started.
Right.
So, that's, and it just keeps going and going and going. And one of my friends labeled it the best, that if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And we've been kind of using that mantra as how we get started with this, and it takes us into these. You go and you do a couple of classes, you meet some people, you do a couple more classes, you meet some people, and the thing with the classes is, you learn some stuff at the classes, but in reality, you learn just as much talking with the people that are in the class with you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And one of the guys over in the East Coast, Ken Collins, I learned a truckload from him while we were in one of those, in a master's class of all things. And it was just, you just keep learning that, and you keep applying it, and pretty much you end up right where we're at now.
And you become an overnight success, which is what everybody is, right? Which is absolutely not the truth. Do we know? No. Do you know anybody that's been an overnight success as a custom club fitter? I don't know.
No, not a soul, because in reality, unless you're doing this, and have a tremendous amount of backing, like only two truly companies do, you really lean on word of mouth. And one guy tells two guys, and two guys tell two guys, and till pretty much you're in this particular area. Now with the, because we've been doing this since 1999.
Yeah.
And so that, and then here comes the internet, and with the YouTube and websites and whatnot, then just your reach expands a little bit more. I've made clubs for guys in Mexico and California, New York, and as far in a whole other country known as Kentucky, and all these other places. So it's really been a real positive experience to get to meet different people. Just last week, a friend from Cincinnati brought a country western singer here, and I was like, good night, look at here, I'm getting to deal with country western stars.
Yeah.
So it's been a real fun journey so far.
I don't know if you heard in one of my podcasts or somewhere, actually John Kasich went to my high school.
Really?
And yeah, he did. Governor of Ohio, and he actually did a campaign stop in Knoxville. And although I guess I wouldn't call myself a Republican, and I guess I'm whatever makes sense, I hope. But so I got to walk up to him, and he didn't remember me, but he plays golf. So, I mean, somebody's got to get to him.
Yeah.
Jim, I gave him one of my little logo golf chips. I said, you're looking to get more yards. He said, come on, see me. But he didn't bite. Oh, well.
Well, I'm sure he's been busy here as of late. So.
Oh, yeah. He was a neat guy. He gave a great stump talk. Well, yeah, neat stuff. Well, let's move on a little bit. What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions golfers have about, what I'd call true custom club fitting, and maybe some of the biggest surprises that they come out of a fitting with you having? What kind of things happen?
This is probably one of the better questions, and if a lot of other folks said, there's standard answer that I'm just not good enough, and I'm not good enough to get a club fitting. And a lot of that would be true, that, I'm not good enough to get a fit because what am I going to get out of it? Well, the numbers show this. The numbers show that the higher your score, the more strokes you're going to lose after you get fit, because chances are your gear, your golf equipment, is causing you to make poor swings. Now, that's not the case all the time, but a lot of the time. And the fact that, you have the largest room for improvement too. When you're up there and you're in single digits, you're not looking to necessarily hit it another 10 yards further, or you're in a whole different category of maybe course management or trying to eke out that consistency, where if you're that 90s golfer, that 88 to 98 golfer, that there's a lot of room for improvement, and the clubs can help you do that. That's one of the biggest things. And the other, that's an easy, that was a low hanging fruit kind of deal there. But the other one is the length of the golf club. It is really amazing when they go, well, I hand them a half-inch shorter golf club, and they go, this isn't going to go as far because it's short. And I was like, well, just hit it and we'll find out.
Yeah, right.
And then they knock it 10 yards further because the quality of the hit is so much better that it just outperforms the standard length. And I go, I'll be doggone. And not only that, but now you get the consistency, that landing pattern gets smaller. And they go, well, heck, I think I can live with that. Well, no kidding. And so you get those kinds of concepts. And, probably the third one is the guy that's doing the slice, whether you're lefty or righty, is that, I hit it off to my away. So if it's a right-handed golfer, we'll say, I hit it off to my right. I must be, exercising the shaft so that it's coming in open. No, big boy, that's not it. Chances are you're not exercising it enough. And we need to go a little bit softer so you can tell the club to actually shut. And that's what fittings truly are, is you break a lot of misconceptions or myth busting. And as soon as they hit a good one, success breeds a lot of acceptance.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to have to think about how to make that the name of this interview. But the thing about misconceptions is a huge one, and the sad part is a lot of people just don't jump in and try to understand that. And guys, it's worth it to have fun when you're going to be out in a golf course for 4 hours.
Well, yeah, and that's really the deal. Most of us aren't getting paid to go play.
Yeah.
And, the reality of it is, everybody wants to go out and have fun. And 9 times out of 10, the guys I talk to, having fun is just beating the score that you shot last, or out driving your buddy so you can get that hot dog and a Coke at the end of the round. And those are the things. We're not going out there and playing for millions of dollars or even thousands of dollars for that matter. And so the idea, if you can give up, put some sticks underneath these guys that are, would provide that, then, hey, that's a solid win.
Yeah. Well, I took a little time to look at some of your YouTube videos, which, as I said earlier, are really great. But, and some of them, or maybe it was one particular one, you talked in particular about the importance of smash factor and dispersion of shots. Now, yeah, I'm going to step away for a minute, though. I calculated the smash from the guy that won the long drive thing. I don't know if you watched that last week. I just watched part of it. Yeah, I was watching. I had to go to bed early, but I was watching the
I watched leading up to it. Man, there's some big boys in that one.
But he was at 1.52, and the commentators even mentioned early on in the program that it's really important for these guys to hit it on a button when they're doing it. It's kind of amazing they do it with how hard they swing. But yeah, talk about smash factor and dispersion a little bit, and how it factors into what you do.
Well, and if you see a 1.52, you've pretty maxed out that smash factor and probably went above the norm. Yeah. And if those guys swinging 140 mile an hour, it's nearly impossible to get that. So if those guys are getting that kind of rebound with that kind of ball, and hey, that guy, he's got some skills other than being able to bash the thing 340 or 430 yards. But smash factor, okay, just so we know, smash factor is a ratio between club head speed and ball speed. And that directly gets into the quality of the shot. So we look for the highest quality of the shot that one can possibly get. And because, even if you're having a bad day, you can still get good results out of a driver or out of a iron, or out of your clubs in general, right? Because although you don't have necessarily a smash factor, but you want to be able to get the middle of your putter as well.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we want to optimize that. And you'd be surprised how hard that is. If you go out there and you see somebody on the toe, typically they're in the 1.3 range. And the minute you either shorten a club or make a swing change or just move them in a little closer or whatever, and all of a sudden your swing speed hasn't changed, nothing's truly changed, but you're in the middle, and all of a sudden you're getting, you go from a 1.38 to a 1.43. And there's a significant difference. And you're like, oh, okay. And the sound is different, the feel is different, and the performance is different. And so the quality of the hit or the higher smash factor is virtually important. Not necessarily is it the longest. I would give up a little, just, as they say, the woods are full of long drivers. And that's what that's for, is getting that quality of hit so that good days, bad days, medium days, you're at least going to get the most out of your club. And typically it goes hand in hand with the dispersion. You can hit, like we were talking about, the width of your shot, the woods are full of long drivers thing. That's great, and this is the one I like talking to people during the fitting. You get that guy that, when you go into the clubhouse at the end of the round, you hear about the guy that says, I hit that 295 yards. Yeah, it was really great. That one shot. Well, there's 18 holes, brother. I want to be the guy responsible for the golfer that goes in there and says, you should have seen me. I was 280, 290 off the tee all day long and in the middle of the fairway. I hit 7 good shots, 10 good shots, 12 good shots off the tee. That's the dispersion. That's the smash factor. That's what we want, and that's what the fitting provides.
And that's one of the things that I have to say, sometimes I struggle with that with people about trying to get them to buy that, and the more golfers that really do buy that importance of dispersion, and boy, losing a couple yards to be in the middle all the time is, it's going to mean lower scores. That's all it is.
You get in there and the dispersion, if you can get in the middle, and now there's a trade, I'm not going to give up 20 yards for being in the middle, but if I'm between, 1 and maybe 10, depending on how far the guy's hitting it, then yeah, because your next shot's going to be from the middle in the short grass. It's way easier to do that than the second cut of rough.
Yeah. Well, Jim, another one of the, I think one of the videos you talked, forget which one it was, but about lie angles and drivers. And this is still an area that, boy, I personally have a lot of confusion about. Because sometimes I see drivers that are 62, 63 degree lie angles, and sometimes I see them 59, 58. And, as you know, the Sean ones are typically around 59. But I guess there's some sense that those real, upright drivers can help with keeping you from slicing the ball. Do you see that a lot with people? Do you see that making a difference? What's been your experience there?
Well, the lie angle really becomes just like most design properties, it's just depending on what the designer is shooting for, right? So like we were talking earlier, with Sean, he kind of, he's looking for that special, that regular swing guy, right? He's not a game improver swing. He's not a player swing. He's that regular golfer guy that should have the normal swing. Now you get others that are all about game improvement, and all of a sudden that lie angle starts jacking up. Well, as you and I have been taught, lie angle is what? It's really important at the bottom end of the set.
Yeah, in the iron, in the short irons, right?
Right. As the higher the loft goes, the more important the lie angle becomes because it's accuracy. Well, you're talking about a driver that could be anywhere from 9 to 12 degrees. That's hardly anything. So I'm thinking, well, why is that? Well, if you look at the ones that are jacked up around 62, 61, 62, the face angle shuts. And when the face angle shuts, that's the new, or the old for that matter, because it's been around for a while. That's the new offset. You know how the actual offsetted drivers aren't around anymore?
Or the boy, I remember, gosh, what was it? Maybe 8 or 10 years ago, you don't ever see close face drivers in stores either.
Well,
there are very few, right? Unless you can adjust it, right?
Right. Well, yeah, you get to you set them up now, 1-2 degrees close is pretty much it. Not like what you're talking about, significantly shut, like the 4 degrees or even better in some cases.
Yeah.
And so, they go, oh, this is for, slice improvement. Well, what happens is the lie angle gets cranked up. And when it cranks up, of course, that toe sticks up. And then what happens is that face angle starts going closed, and hopefully it helps you bring the club around to square or even slightly closed, and way better than off into the right again into the trees or into the second cut. And again, that's also that a lot of the drivers going the opposite direction. Have you seen where the plane of a golfer's swing starts to get a little more upright?
Right? You mean at impact? Yeah.
Well, when you take, the whole plane, you take that whole plane and it's a little more upright because of they think they get a little more torque into it. Well, then there you go, 62 degrees. Where you get into more of the traditional swing, and then you get into the range of that 58, 59, and maybe even 60.
And I think toe droop has some effect, too, on it in terms of some of the shafts, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that takes you into a whole nother. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast all its own. Is shafts and what they do, and that's toe droops and IE curves and manufacturing processes, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you get to do is you've got quite a lot of the OEM drivers in your shop, and some of your videos were about that. How often are those coming out of your shop at the standard lengths? Are you doing a bunch of cutting of those for a lot of people?
I have yet to put out a driver that is at the standard length.
Well, that's a great statement. I like that. Yeah.
I mean, and like 2 years ago at the PGA when we were doing that ICG stuff,
yeah,
I did a presentation on driver length specifically. And I went through all my fittings. We 300-400 fittings, and I fit anywhere from ladies that were 4 foot and some change. And that year, I actually fit an NBA player that was 7 foot tall.
Ooh.
And what I did was in our fitting process, we hit at least 3 different lengths of drivers. So I have shafts of the same flex, same grip, same tip, and they screw in literally into the same club. And we put the impact tape on it, and all I'm looking for is a consistent pattern, and then we can work from there. Well, once we find that consistent pattern, if you compare all 3 of them together, 99 times out of 100, the one that's most consistent is also the one that's the most longest. Is that even English? That's the most longer. Anyway, it's longer. And so when I factored all those in, put them on a spreadsheet, and came out and looked at it, and the longest club that hit the longest was 44.5 inches.
Huh.
Yeah, almost right, and not by a little bit, by a lot. And the surprising thing was the second longest was 45. And now, of course, you go with evolution. People are getting taller, flat swings are getting better, so you can handle a little more club. But so that was it. Now, I also did one for control. And again, control, 44.5. And not surprisingly, right after that was 44. And so even if they're very, very tall, I tend to go with a tad shorter. And again, going back to the other one, because as you get shorter, you get into the better part of the club, the smash factor goes up, and your dispersion starts to shrink. And then after that, it's trying to figure out where you want the ball to go.
Yeah, almost all of my test clubs are at least starting at, I've got some at 43.5 and some at 44.5, and I'll always test with extenders to see if they go longer, but like you say, it's almost never, unless it's somebody that's really tall.
Well, yeah, and that that's extraordinary. And
yeah,
the funnier part about it is one other thing I noticed is, as the swing gets flatter, the swing plane for these golfers get flatter, the longer the club that they can use.
Sure, that's right. Well, that was something that, as you probably know, Tom Wishon sort of changed his thoughts about some of that and said, hey, find the longest club that you can hit well. But that's also, but find the longest. That doesn't mean go too long, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him about that one, and I like talking with Tom because the conversations just go off onto tangents, which you come away going, oh my God, what did I just hear all this stuff from? Yeah. And he was, it's the longest, he talked about athletic ability and the longest club you can throw out there. And in effect, that's what we're doing. We're finding the longest club that those people can hit well. And right now it's right around 44.5. And again, if you take the stats off even the PGA Tour, 44.5 to 44 3/4 seems to be the standard length of the guys bombing it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And even some of them are 42 and 43, but we know some of those cases, but they're the ones that get in my Golf Spy and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Right.
Well, you had a lot of fun, I guess, over the last couple months getting into some of the tour vans, a couple of tour vans. Maybe talk a little bit about those experiences and, just a wide range of things, things you learn, surprises, and then we'll go into that other question that you and I talked about later because I think it's interesting after we talk about that, sort of lay the case there for that, what you did.
All right. Well, what I was able to do this year, because I did very well with Callaway, I was able to get on the Callaway tour van for the web.com tour. They have a tournament up here in Columbus. It's the beginning of that 4-tournament finale where another 25 cards get handed out. And right. So the number 26 to whatever on the web.com, or even the guys that were outside the 125 line on the PGA Tour, they come in here, and the top 25 guys, they get their card. And so, it's also for the Nation Kids Hospital. So, it's for a worthy cause as well. And so I get on there, and I've been on PGA Tour vans before, and I'm thinking, well, this is going to be the same thing. Well, nowhere close. But some really good guys. The one I did, if you get on the YouTube, there's one on going to see the Callaway tour van, and the guy talks about putting a driver together. And I kind of sneak in a couple of shots of what's going on in the van, and how people are coming in and coming out and getting tweaked. And then here, as of late, just put that out a couple days ago, was getting on the LPGA tour van. And no two vans are alike. No two setups are alike. To the case in point, the PGA and the web.com, the sponsors have the vans, the Callaways, the Titleists, Mizunos, all those guys have their vans. When you get on the LPGA, they don't have that kind of support. So the LPGA put together its own tour van.
Oh, how interesting. I didn't realize that because I didn't listen to your YouTube about that yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's different. They don't have the support that the other two tours get. So the LPGA did them a solid, and if you look on the outside, there's a handful of sponsors in order for them to carry the product on the tour or on the van. And then they have one guy, his name is Paul, and he services every last one of those guys, unless for some unknown reason that another sponsorship vehicle or van will show up. But pretty much he's the primary guy, and all the girls know him. And you know what? For all those out there listening, if you haven't seen an LPGA event, go see one. They are absolutely the greatest thing. Low key, easy going, and good golf. Yeah, just here yesterday, you saw Lexi. She went 19 under.
Yeah,
that's no joke. And this tour van, this guy was just moving and shaking the whole time. It took me almost 5 hours just to get 20 minutes worth of video in between all the people.
Jeez.
Yeah, and and they've got, and the cool part about the tour vans is, all the people, the Golf Prides, the Lampkins, and then the shaft companies and all those, they want their product in those players' hands for that TV time that they might get. So they just provide them all kinds of those, and hopefully that they turn around to it and they go, oh yeah, here it is. This works really good. And you see the guy that strikes that pose, and there's that shining bright example of a shaft, or you get to see the multicolored grip or whatever it might be, and then people will want to run out and get it the next day.
Yeah. Well, the one tour van thing that you had that was really fascinating was that the lie loft machine, right, down to 1/10 of a degree, wasn't it? Where they had the line. That was, I'd never seen one of those before. Talk about that for a second, and about why they have it. Well,
that was on a Callaway van, and in their tour department, they have the exact same thing. And pretty much what it is, it's a Mitchell machine.
Okay.
And what they do is they load a camera and a display on this thing so that it shows, and for all those who've never seen a Mitchell machine, what you do is you put one of the score lines in line with one of the place where there's the where the thing tilts, and then you try and line them up, and that sets you up, and you tighten it down, and then that's where you make your adjustments from. Well, what this does is it shines it right in that same spot, but it expands. It's a magnification of the face, and there's a line that goes straight across that screen so that every single soul that runs up to use this thing has the exact same alignment, has the exact same setting, and everybody can adjust it to the same. So if that particular tour guy happens to be on vacation or whatnot, and they bring in a backup, he will be able to adjust them exactly the same. Then you add in the digital readouts that they have, and those are available at the Mitchells. They have the digital readouts. Well, those things read upwards of tenths, 100ths of a 0.01, I think.
Crazy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, crazy close. And so that everybody's the same. Now you think, well, geez, that's pretty close. Well, fortunately, being on those tour vans, I've seen guys that will notice that. They will notice at least a half a degree. Hey, this doesn't look right to my eye. And you go and measure it, and sure enough, it's off. Or they want the loft angle. It's hitting too high for some reason, and sure enough, it might be off a little bit. And it just tweaks, just a little bit of tweaks. That's how good these guys really are. Yeah. And they see that. And just, in the stories, I even saw, I was in the one up at the NEC, and we put grips on for a player and went through the whole set, and he threw two back and said they were too big. I'm like, too big? Are you kidding me? And we put a micrometer on it. one hundredth too big in the backhand, and he felt that.
Jeez.
And I was like, so we had to put 2 more on, and we put the micrometer on it, and he took it back, and he said, yep, that feels good. And so now, not everybody has that feel, but there are a lot, when you got a golf club in your hand 8 hours a day and, 5 to 7 days out of the week, you're going to get pretty personal with your golf gear. And it just happens out there. And those guys are good. That's the whole saying.
Well, the other, that other question that we were going to talk about is, what are some of the differences between the tour vans and some of the custom fit shops? And you have some perspectives on that you wanted to share, I know.
Yeah, for any of you guys that are listening to Tony's podcast and you guys are custom club guys, when you go to my YouTube video and we're in my shop, I've set it up much like a tour van, where it's dirty on one side, clean on the other. And that, it is, even though they're a few feet away, but that's where I got the idea from, was with this van. Well, if you go and look and you take an inventory of what's going on in my shop, and you go and you look at these other 2 videos and you see what's going in their shop, you'll see some stuff that's not there. And, everybody's got loft and lie machines. Okay, we got that. Check. Everybody's got some sort of grinder, whether it be a Burr King, a Jet, or whatever. Check. Got that. Very few, and if you look at the other one, a thing to turn ferrules, right?
Yeah.
That was, you hardly see one of those. No buffing. There's no buffing in that one. The cutoff machines, yeah, everybody's got those. Check. The one at the LPGA, he had a lot of you'll know this one. He had a lot of equipment from Scotland Golf. Remember that name?
Yeah.
He had a thing that did the tip, and you ran a wheel into it, and you can set the depth so you couldn't take off more than a layer of paint, and it would shoot the shaft out when it was all done. And I was like, wow, that's a neat little setup. And the thing's got to be 20 years old. And then you go to the other side, and it's a measuring device, and they have a different measuring device, but everybody's got a measuring device. Swing weight scale. That thing is tucked out of the way somewhere on that tour van, hardly ever used anymore, although you would think that swing weight for them would be important. Now, on the other vans, it probably is. On ours, it's a prominent spot.
Yeah.
A regripping station. Yeah, you got to have that, otherwise you'll never make it out there. But one of the big things that we have that they don't is a frequency machine in order to check the flex. And then I have a loft and lie gauge to check the actual instead of just shoving it into the machine. And so, one of our standing, mantras again is, get the treatment the pros get. And that's the reason why we have our shop set up the way that it is. And I noticed that they didn't have the frequency machine to check for flex. And it hit me, and just like we were talking, when you have basically an infinite number of shafts out there in order to play, if you don't like what you got, you bring it in and say, I really don't like this one. They take that one out, put another one in, hand it back to you, and away you go.
And it's in 10 minutes too, because they use the real rapid stuff, right? Yeah.
Right. That glue, that thing is solid in basically 10, 15 minutes tops.
Yeah.
And out there they go to the range to test it, and bang, they're playing it, or no, they're bringing it back. So the need to be that precise truly isn't there for them where it is for us, because our guys aren't professionals as a whole. And to give them that precision, to give them that consistency, only helps them be that consistent. Right? Those guys on the tour, you give them a brick and a stick and they can still get around under par. Well, that doesn't happen where, I don't know about you, but around here, that's not happening. So we got to give them the most consistent across the board, whether it be weight, flex, lie, all the different parameters in club, in order for them to be able to put the best swing possible on it. And that's the reason, and that's the big difference.
Yeah, that's a great explanation of that. Well, Jim, talk a little bit, about some of the, since 1999, but some of the really most satisfying things and people you've gotten to work with in terms of successes. Tell a couple success story things here.
Well, you know what? Here as of late, we had a high school golfer, and it was a girl, and just the nicest gal you ever would want to meet. Very, very professional, very nice, and very, very talented. And she was a sophomore, and she knew that she was having issues, and Dad brought her to get fit, and we went through the fitting process and modified her current set and changed a few other things, and that was the last I heard of her. Well, later on in the season, I get this note and a news article, and it is this gal she was the first person in her high school to go to a state event.
Huh.
And she was the only girl on her golf team. So she was playing in the number 2 position for the guys. And she sent me a copy of the news article of her success, and she wrote me a nice little note, and I've got it up on my wall. And it just, the fact that you took the time with these people and they saw a bit of success is just amazing. And it's those kinds of stories that I get the most enjoyment out of. A guy that's a low handicapper says, "Yeah, I'm hitting it the greatest," but what I like is the dead improvements, and those are the kind of stories. One of the very first ones I've gotten was a guy, a beginning golfer, and this alludes to one of our first questions, right?
Yeah.
Beginning golfer, and can't keep it in the fairway. Well, we go through the fitting process, and he's hitting it further, longer, straighter, all that stuff. And about 2 weeks later, I get an email from him, just absolutely over the moon about how well the gear's playing. And he's like, in the middle of the statement, he's like, "You know what? It's a whole different atmosphere playing golf in your own fairway." Yeah. It's those kinds of improvements that I just get the biggest kick out of. The guys that have that kind of improvement, and they're back to enjoying the game of golf, and we just get those kinds of things. And it's just, I probably got half a dozen of those. I got just recently a guy from Cincinnati, which is about 100 miles away. He called me and got his first hole-in-one with the clubs that we built for him. So, yeah, it's those kinds of stories, and we get them, not every day, obviously, but those are the kinds of stories that just, keep me going.
The hole-in-one stories are a lot of fun. I hope I get a lot more of those. I've had 3 people that have gotten hole-in-ones with clubs, and I know a lot of other folks have a lot more, but every one is just like, oh, wow. 'Cause it's such a special thing to get to do.
And they, well, number one, the percentages of getting them is very, 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 very high, I guess, or for actually making one.
Yeah.
And then when you get them, you're like, oh, geez, and I just think, hey, great job. I'm really jealous because I don't have one yet.
Me too. What does that mean about us, right? I don't know.
Well, another one of those old adages where if you're in the golf business, you don't play a lot of golf. And
that's true. That's true.
But
well, Jim, it's been a great interview. I really appreciate it. Any final words you want to pass on to golfers? Any particular things that you didn't say that you want to let them know about, things to help them play their best?
Well, this is all about getting fit, and you don't have to go through a full-on fitting if you took up golf yesterday, right? Everybody's like, oh, you got to get fit, got to get fit, got to fit. Yes, but if you just got started, you may just want some basics, right? If you're a really, really tall guy and you get a normal set, may not be what you need. Just get into the right wheelhouse at least, so you can give golf a chance, so that you can enjoy it. What I would say is get the fitting that is most in line with where you're at. Now if you're that guy that's been golfing a year, maybe it's time for that. And if you're the guy low handicapper that's looking for that little something, and you get to a guy that's got, maybe it's a little more technical, that kind of stuff. And and don't be afraid to go out and play hard. I never seen so many people that they get out there and they get over top of the ball and they go through this mental checklist. And as the mental checklist starts, the muscles start tightening up, and then you go
yeah.
and you get this, and then when you don't hit it, you wonder why, and then you go through analysis. You get paralysis via analysis.
Yeah.
Go out there, have some fun. And the way you have fun is you have good gear underneath of you. You don't need the most expensive stuff. You just need the best stuff for you.
I think the first thing that you said was so important. I mean, it doesn't have to be, and of course, we like to do fittings that are long, and because it takes the time for some people, but it doesn't have to be a really long fitting for somebody that's a starter person. Helping people that are starting golf is such a great thing to get to do.
That's a fact. When we start fittings, one of the first things is this guy going to be able to actually make contact with the club? And in the whole history of me doing this, I've only stopped the fitting 3 times, and this is since like 1999. And I stopped the fitting and said, okay, look here, let's go do a lesson first.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing, let's get your swing into some level of an area where you can actually hit the ball, and then we'll do a fitting. And I had the very first guy I did was a very, very competitive individual, and he's like, "You're really stopping me." I said, "Well, yeah, man, we got to do something else." Well, he came back about 2 months later. Apparently, he took that as a challenge, and he went to a certified instructor, got some lessons, went out and he practiced. Like any sport, that was the one thing. I think guys in golf, when you played baseball, you practiced every day.
Yeah.
When you were in baseball or basketball, you practice every day. When you're in football, same thing. When we get in golf, you get out there once a week and we expect ourselves to get better. Well, because we played last week. Well, that's not going to work. And anyway, he came back and he says, "Hey, you want to see my swing?" I said, "Sure, jump on in here." Good gravy. Total improvement. Now the guy's a single-digit handicapper because of all that.
Yeah. Great stuff. Well, Jim, I'm going to put links to McGolf custom clubs in the show notes, and in particular also a link to the YouTube videos that are really well done and really interesting. And it's been a great interview, and I appreciate you getting to take the time today to do this. And hang in for a few minutes after I push the stop button, and we'll talk about 1 or 2 other things. But thanks again.
Thank you, Tony. And you guys have a good one.
www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Jim, thanks again for sharing those great custom club fitting insights to help golfers play their best, and also sharing some of the fun you had in the tour vans. I've included links in the show notes to Jim's McGolf Custom Clubs website, and also to his very interesting YouTube channel, where he's posted many videos related to custom fitting and other topics related to helping golfers play their best. Later this week, if you get the time, I hope you'll go to my website, www.gameimprovementgolf.com. I'm making some changes to the homepage on my site that I hope will be valuable for golfers. Thanks to Scott Bodkins from Cincinnati Web Designs for helping me with these improvements. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, I'm looking forward to sharing my conversation with Dr. Samuel Vine, Senior Lecturer in Psychology and Motor Science at the University of Exeter. Dr. Vine does research in the quiet eye process for putting improvement, in the relationships between anxiety and performance, and in some other interesting areas that I know we'll discuss. You'll enjoy this one. See you in 2 weeks.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com